This story is set in New York City and begins with a married couple, Jacob and Romy, relaxing at home. After a long day, Jacob falls asleep almost instantly, just like most men do. Meanwhile, Romy, who still wants to spend more time together, ends up grabbing her laptop to keep herself entertained. The next morning, Romy is practicing a script for a video she's going to present on camera. She's the CEO of a rapidly growing robotics company. Despite her successful career, she still takes care of her role as a homemaker. She and Jacob have 2 kids, Isabel and Nora. Wearing a worn-out apron, Romy prepares breakfast for her family and packs lunch for her daughters. Romy's a pretty strict mom when it comes to parenting, unlike Jacob, who takes a more laid-back approach. On her way to the office, she sees someone being chased by a stray dog. The sight unsettles her and brings back memories from her past. Luckily, a man steps in and manages to calm the dog down. When she gets to the office, Romy jumps right into delivering a speech on camera for the company's social media content. In her speech, she emphasizes the importance of developing advanced robotics to support automation, especially in e-commerce. Afterward, her assistant, Esme, reminds her that she's scheduled to meet with the new interns joining that day. Romy agrees and gives the interns a motivational talk, but she's surprised to see that Samuel, the guy who tamed the dog earlier, is actually one of the new interns at her company. Samuel asks a bit of a challenging question, wondering why she's so ambitious about automation when robots lack the specialized skills that humans have. Esme quickly wraps up the session since Romy still has a packed schedule. Romy finds herself intrigued by Samuel because of his unique personality. She even takes a moment to ask him how he managed to calm the dog down. Samuel tells her that he gave it some bread. That night, Jacob tries to initiate some alone time with Romy. She actually wants to try something new, but Jacob sticks to his usual ways, which don't exactly excite her. The next day, Romy gave another speech as usual. Later on, the company hosted a Christmas party where employees could bring their families. Feeling bored with the party atmosphere, Romy decided to step out onto the balcony for some fresh air. Not long after she left, Samuel showed up as well. He admitted that he wasn't really into Christmas parties and preferred to step outside. He then told Romy that he had chosen her as his mentor for the internship program. Romy was caught off guard and replied that she wasn't involved in any mentoring program, but Samuel insisted that her name was listed in the email he had received. While everyone at the party was busy dancing, Romy quietly kept glancing at Samuel. The next morning, when she arrived at the office, she picked up Samuel's tie, which had fallen off the night before while he was dancing. The scent on the tie made her think about him even more. Feeling uneasy, she decided to go to therapy, hoping to get rid of the thoughts that kept lingering in her mind. Back at the office, Romy ran into Samuel in the elevator. She tried to act composed, even though he was still occupying her thoughts. That night, she asked Esme who had recommended her for the mentorship program. Esme explained that it was Hazel's idea. Hazel believed that Romy's involvement in external company activities would give her an advantage in the increasingly competitive corporate world. In the end, Romy agreed to be Samuel's mentor. The next day, they had their first mentoring session. Samuel asked where she had gotten the idea for the automated warehouse storage system she had proposed. Romy explained that the idea came to her right after she graduated from college. Back then, she was interviewing at an investment firm, and the interviewer asked her a math question about how many ping pong balls could fit in a room. Instead of overcomplicating things, she chose to give a simple answer. But Samuel, on the other hand, was busy trying to find the exact calculation, which annoyed Romy because she thought it was a waste of time. Samuel kept working on his calculations. Suddenly, he asked Romy to close the door and handed her something. She took it for a moment but quickly left when she realized they were about to cross a line they shouldn't. After that incident, Romy tried to avoid Samuel. She even skipped the next mentoring session. Samuel went straight to her and asked why she hadn't shown up. Romy tried to brush him off, saying that what he did before was completely inappropriate. Samuel admitted his mistake, but reminded her that company rules required her to mentor him once a week. Feeling cornered, Romy reluctantly agreed to continue the mentoring sessions. Feeling guilty, she decided to visit Jacob at the theater, where he worked as a director. Jacob was surprised to see her suddenly show up. The last time she did something like this was back in 1997, when he suspected she was having an affair with the lighting technician. Romy simply told him she just wanted to see him. Later, Romy hung out with Hazel and Esme at a bar. Coincidentally, Samuel was working there part-time. Not long after, a barista approached Romy and handed her a glass of milk from an anonymous sender. Hazel suggested she shouldn't drink it, joking that it could be an insult, implying she was old and needed milk for strong bones. But Romy, knowing it was from Samuel, chose to drink it anyway. One night, Romy planned to watch Jacob's play with her team. However, before the show even started, she decided to leave, saying she had urgent work to take care of. When she got to the office, she found a piece of paper with an address and a request for her to be there at 6:30 a.m. Guess who left it? Yep, Samuel. The next morning, Romy went to the address he had given her. When she arrived, Samuel looked genuinely surprised that she actually showed up. Without wasting time, Romy told him not to do something like this again, especially leaving notes at the office, which was clearly inappropriate. But Samuel ignored Romy's complaints. Instead, he tried to stop her from leaving the cheap hotel. In the end, she decided to play along with his game. Even though she felt uncomfortable at first, deep down, she was actually drawn to him. Samuel took control, treating Romy like his subordinate. At first, she resisted, feeling it was inappropriate to be treated that way, but over time, she started to enjoy it. At the office, Romy was known as a strict and authoritarian boss, but with Samuel, she suddenly became the one taking orders. Strangely enough, she liked it. Samuel gave her something Jacob never had. Even though part of her felt humiliated, she couldn't deny how she really felt. From then on, Romy and Samuel met whenever they had the chance, at the office, in cheap hotels, or anywhere they could be together. Until one day, Samuel suddenly showed up at Romy's house. She was completely shocked that he had the nerve to step into her family's life. Samuel explained that Esme had asked him to drop off Romy's laptop, which she had left at the office. He was about to leave, but Jacob, Isabel, and Nora invited him to go hiking with them. To make things worse, Samuel accepted the invitation. That pissed Romy off. She pulled him outside to talk in private. Romy told him never to meet her family again. She made it clear that her family and career were important, and she wouldn't let him ruin them. She also told him to stop seeing her outside of work hours. Samuel didn't take that well. Romy explained that she wasn't going to fire him, but they had to remain professional as boss and employee. She told him it was for his own good. The next day, Romy saw Samuel in her office with their boss. The boss was there to discuss a recording that Hazel had sent, but assured Romy that she didn't need to worry about it. She had no idea what recording they were talking about, but she quickly left because Samuel had asked to meet her on the rooftop. Up there, Samuel told her that he had requested a mentor reassignment with the division head. Romy immediately shut that down, warning him that it could trigger an investigation. If they got caught, their relationship would be exposed, and Samuel would definitely get fired. That night, Jacob invited Romy to spend some time together, but overwhelmed with everything going on, she turned him down right away. She even told him he could never make her happy. Then she went to the bar where Samuel worked. But instead of coming out to see her, Samuel sent a friend to tell her he didn't want to talk. The next morning, Romy apologized to Jacob for what she had said the night before. She told him she didn't mean to hurt him, but he was clearly upset by her words. When she got to the office, she went straight to Samuel for their mentoring session. She apologized for being too harsh on him before, admitting that the age gap between them made her feel like she had crossed a line. She worried that she had hurt his feelings, since she was naturally protective. But Samuel just brushed it off and told her he didn't mind. Except beneath that calm response, he turned the tables, threatening to report everything they had done to their boss if she didn't do what he wanted. Then he laid out the rules for their relationship. He was in charge and Romy had to obey him completely. She hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. They fell back into their secret affair, even checking into a hotel to spend the night together. One day, Romy threw a birthday party for Isabel, inviting close friends, including Esme. But she nearly had a heart attack when she saw Samuel walk in with Esme. Esme casually mentioned that she had invited Samuel as her date. Romy immediately panicked. When she got a moment alone with Samuel, she grabbed him and demanded to know what was going on. Was he dating Esme? Samuel admitted that they were into each other. Romy lost it, snapping that he wasn't allowed to be with any other woman. He belonged to her. Samuel shot back with a smirk. "Don't you have a husband?" The next day, Romy called Esme into her office. Pretending to be concerned, she said she knew about Esme's relationship with Samuel. She reminded her that, in terms of position, Esme was Samuel's superior, while Samuel was just an intern. Romy told her she didn't want Esme to get a bad reputation for taking advantage of her position. But the truth was, Romy was insanely jealous of Esme getting close to Samuel. She was only trying to protect Esme's career to keep her own relationship with Samuel safe. That night, Samuel called Romy and asked to meet somewhere. Without hesitation, she lied to Jacob, saying she had to work late and would be home late. Then she headed to the place Samuel had mentioned. Turns out he had taken her to a party full of young people. After the party ended, Romy went home, where she found Isabella still awake, struggling with something. She comforted her daughter and told her to get some rest. The next morning, Esme suddenly showed up at Romy's house. She said she knew about Romy's affair with Samuel. Esme promised to stay away from him, but only on one condition. Romy had to give her the promotion she deserved. Esme insisted she wasn't blackmailing her, but pointed out that Romy had been stalling her promotion for too long. In the end, Romy agreed to reconsider her request. After Esme left, Jacob walked in and saw Romy crying. She finally confessed. She admitted she had been having an affair with another man. She told Jacob she did it because she was looking for something he had never given her. Jacob completely lost it. He couldn't believe Romy would risk their family and their children just to satisfy her own desires. Furious, he ordered her to leave their home. That night, Romy saw Samuel casually swimming in her pool. Instead of getting mad or kicking him out, she invited him inside. As if they were already close, they ended up spending time together. Not long after, Jacob came home and immediately caught them alone together. His anger exploded on the spot. Without thinking twice, he went after Samuel, and a fight broke out. After struggling to calm them down, Romy finally managed to break them apart. She handed Samuel an ice pack to soothe the bruises forming on his face. At that moment, Jacob let out all his frustration. In his eyes, Romy was just using Samuel to fulfill her own desires. But Samuel wasn't having it. He argued that Jacob simply didn't understand how relationships worked in today's world. Samuel's words left Jacob speechless. He couldn't wrap his head around their way of thinking. Meanwhile, Romy finally decided to promote Esme to junior leader. Now, Esme was confident enough to step in front of the camera, taking over Romy's role. That day, Isabel came to see her mother. She wanted to bring her home. Ever since Romy had been staying at that house, Jacob had never returned. But Isabel was convinced her father had already forgiven her, so she tried to persuade Romy to meet Jacob at the theater. After thinking for a moment, Romy finally agreed. She went to see Jacob and sincerely apologized. She admitted that everything that happened was entirely her fault, not because Jacob had failed to meet her needs. Hearing her honesty, Jacob forgave her. Once everything was settled, Romy went back to the office as usual. But when she arrived, her boss was already waiting for her. Curious, he immediately asked about Samuel. Apparently, Samuel was now working in Japan at Kawasaki. But that wasn't the real reason her boss had come. With a serious expression, he revealed that he knew about Romy's relationship with Samuel. He intended to use that information to blackmail her into cooperating with him. However, Romy wasn't afraid. She firmly refused to play his game. She warned him not to try anything funny because she didn't care about any threats he might throw her way. Meanwhile, Jacob started to change. Now he was becoming more dominant, just like Samuel had been before. It seemed like he was doing all of this to satisfy Romy's desires. Elsewhere, Samuel was seen at a hotel. Beside him was a black dog, the same one that had appeared earlier in the story. It was possible the dog had been his all along. If that were true, then everything that had happened was part of Samuel's plan. He had orchestrated it all to win Romy over.